Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 306 of our trip around the United States. Well, more accurately, it's like the end of day 306. But like a lot of the days in our plan, since we got near the end of Kansas, we haven't been quite as rigid about the start and finish of one day to the next, which has led us here to Steptoe Butte, be able to kick things off for the next portion of our trip. For the next 2 days, we're going to be dropping steadily south along the borders between Washington, Idaho, and Oregon to make our way back into Emmett, just northwest of Boise. Tomorrow's route is going to have us covering 350 miles really through that entire southeast corner of Washington that we haven't touched before. From here in Steptoe Butte, we're going to drop back down again through Colfax, run the highways all the way around. The next morning, we're going to wake up and we're going to have 300 miles to cover along that eastern edge of Oregon, again, crisscrossing in and out of Idaho. Those are some of the loneliest parts of Oregon that you're going to be able to find, and we're going to have the pleasure of being able to travel through them to get to those tiny little edge pages that are along that portion of the state. From there, once we drop into Emmett, that's where we're going to call it, because we have big plans for the weekend. Very excited to see what this part of Washington and Oregon have in store for us, because while they're both really rural, they should also offer some amazing views just like this. So let's get out there and see what the next couple of days have in store for us. Come on, let's go.
We have made it to Washington, the furthest northwest state within the contiguous United States. We come into the 42nd state to join the Union through the very small town of Oakesdale with a population of about 400 people. This part of the state is known as the Palouse region, which extends from here through northern central Idaho and some parts of northeast Oregon. These gentle rolling green hills, covered with wheat fields, are known as one of the 7 wonders of Washington state. Across these rolling green hills, from a long ways off, you can spy Steptoe Butte towering above the land at 3,612 feet. The 168-acre State Park Heritage Site is considered a National Natural Landmark, while the rest of the surrounding Palouse Hills are made up of Columbia River basalts, which are around 15 million years old. Steptoe Butte is formed from a rock that is over 400 million years old. The quartzite island is from the exposed, folded remains of ancient sandstones surrounded by erupted lava. The sandstone, buried deep within the Earth's crust, was subjected to high temperatures and pressures, turning it into quartzite. Around 100 million years ago, that rock was uplifted to the surface. From the top, you can easily spot Mount Spokane in the distance, 70 miles away. Coming back down from the top of Steptoe Butte, we make our way into the city of Colfax, the county seat of Whitman County, with a population of about 2,800 people. The city is named for Schuyler Colfax, an American journalist, businessman, and politician who served as the 17th Vice President of the United States from 1869 to 1873. First inhabited by the Palouse Indians, settlers arrived in the area in 1870 and constructed a sawmill. With wheat as the predominant crop in the region, it wasn't too long until a grist mill followed in 1873, capable of producing 50 barrels of flour per day. While Colfax resides as the county seat for Whitman County, it is only its second largest city, having been surpassed by the nearby Pullman in 1930. Our tour of the town brings us upon the very unique site of the 65-foot-tall Codger Pole. The chainsaw sculpture commemorates a 1988 rematch game between the Colfax Bulldogs and the St. John's Eagles. This isn't just any rematch game though. This is a rematch that has been 50 years in the making. All of the players were pushing on 70 years plus. Speaking of codgers, this seems like a good time to check in on Ai-chan. It looks like the thought of playing games made for young pups at her age has her completely tuckered out. Following the stages of an adventure lab, we find a trailhead that leads us past St. Ignatius Hospital. Built in 1892, the hospital remained in operation until the 1960s. Said to be haunted, the empty, looming building and the abandoned structures beyond it lend an ominous atmosphere to the trail. Together, Ai-chan and I pushed through the remnants of what was, feeling the gaze of unseen eyes upon us. She seemed to sense something amiss in the air, often checking out just beyond the trees. Fortunately, we were able to make it to the end of the trail without any mishaps and tracked our way to the geocache waiting for us at the end. Our senses tell us that this log is hiding the prize that we seek. And sure enough, there it is, hiding just under the end, waiting for us to find it. I've got to admit, having a log to sign at the end makes it more than worthwhile to take the creepy, possibly haunted trail to get here. Or perhaps I spoke too soon. What is that hiding under this tree? Is that a haunted geocache? On one side it's a trick, on the other, a treat. The sun is starting to get low in the sky, but I think we have time to track down just one more. An ammo can like this makes a perfect end to a day. The next morning, still in Whitman County, we kick things off in the very small town of La Crosse with a population of about 300 people. After a very short tour of this small town, we move down the road to Washtenaw to visit that NW bus. This odd roadside attraction has been parked here since the 1970s. At that time, used as little more than a place to store supplies, it has sat abandoned off the side of Highway 261 for years. With decades of graffiti covering every bit of its surface area, the Washtenaw Historical Museum wants it to remain as a canvas for artistic expression. Due south of Washtenaw, we drop into the 94-acre Palouse Falls State Park. Here in this state park, the Palouse River runs through a narrow cataract, dropping 200 feet into a churning bowl. Carved out of the Earth's surface more than 13,000 years ago, this natural wonder was named Washington State Waterfall in 2014. Where the Palouse and the Snake Rivers come together at their confluence, we come over the Snake River Bridge, also known as the Lions Ferry Bridge. This connects traffic with the booming town of Starbuck in Columbia County with a population of about 120 people. Incorporated on September 18th of 1905 after the completion of an eastward line, this town was named for railroad official W.H. Starbuck. Boomsticks. From the rural countryside, we find ourselves coming into the city of Dayton, the county seat of Columbia County with a population of about 2,500 people. Founded all the way back in the 1860s, this city wasn't incorporated until November 10th of 1881. The train depot here, dating back to 1881, is the oldest to be found in Washington state. Making our way through the center of town, we come across a war memorial dedicated in honor of all veterans. The memorial consists of 10 basalt stones centered around a central flagpole. 9 of those columns bear the names of wars that the veterans honored on the walls have served in. In our search for geocaches, the locals helped to point the way. The problem is, though, that some pointed left while others pointed right. Rather than taking the risk of getting all turned around, we fired up the hard drive and began our search. We discovered that when you use creative search parameters, you get creative results. And if you're willing to dig just a little below the surface, you might be surprised what you're able to find hidden down in the depths. The further we were willing to go to make the find, the more creative they got. This log cabin made a great hiding place, unlike any I've seen before. Making our way toward the extreme southeast corner of the state, we trek across Garfield County, the least populated county in Washington, with only about 2,300 people living here. Pomeroy, the county seat, is the only city to be found within this county.
Take note here, December 1st. Let Halloween, Thanksgiving have their time to shine, and then Christmas can have the whole month. That's it. Just wait for Thanksgiving to get cleared first. Thank you.
This city is named for rancher Joseph Pomeroy, who purchased the land in 1864 and platted it for the town site in May of 1878. It was recognized as the county seat of Garfield County 4 years before it was even incorporated in February of 1886. Tucked into the plaza between 2 buildings, we spot the Garfield County Veterans Memorial. This look back in time provides us all the motivation needed to continue onward to the corner of the state. From there, we follow State Route 129 heading south toward the Oregon border. This 36-mile-long north-to-south corridor carries you across the Umatilla National Forest. High in the Blue Mountains, this forest covers 1.4 million acres of diverse landscapes. The forest and the mountains in which it lives extend all the way across the state line into Oregon. This is one of the many locations that Lewis and Clark passed through on their Columbia River voyage toward the Pacific Ocean. Compared to the troubles that they most certainly had to face, making our way along these windy mountain roads is a breeze by comparison. Our second day along this route comes to a quick end as we reach the city of Enterprise in Oregon. The next morning, we get things kicked off by exploring this city, the county seat of Wallowa County with a population of about 2,000 people. The name Enterprise is intended to reflect the policy of the city's inhabitants, enterprising. On February 11th of 1887, when Wallowa County was broken away from Union County, several cities in the area began to compete for the position of county seat. Despite a threat of boycott from the residents of Joseph, some entrepreneuring men set out to build a store in Bennett Flat, which would be a contender for the county seat. Ichon and I would have the opportunity to become intimately familiar with the city as we would cross in and out of it on 4 separate occasions over the next 12 hours. From here, we had to detour west for 1 page before attempting to cross the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. There we would be turned around at the mountain pass and have to go all the way around, but not before getting a chance to see the nearby town of Joseph. First called Silver Lake, then Lake City, this city was officially named as Joseph in 1880 after Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce people. Locking on to an adventure lab in the middle of the downtown area, we were able to discover the presence of more than a dozen bronze statues spread around Main Street. The creation of these statues started shortly after the opening of the bronze foundry in 1982. Initially, production of the statues was slow until, in 1996, Mayor Shelley Curtis introduced an effort to enhance the beauty of Joseph's Main Street utilizing the productions of the bronze foundry. The project finally bore fruit in 2002 with the permanent placement of 7 monumental bronze sculptures. While the majority of bronze statues found here are intended for permanent display, 4 of these locations are set up to be temporary, rotating every 6 months. That means that each year you come out here to visit the city of Joseph, you can expect to see a few pieces of art that you didn't get to see the last time you were here. This was also a very welcome break before we had to take a 130-mile detour all the way around the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest to get over the mountain pass filled with snow. This 2.3 million acre tract of national forest runs along the western border of Idaho, the northern part of Oregon, and down through the rugged Wallowa Mountains. The land that this national forest resides in was first occupied by the Nez Perce as early as 1400 CE. Over the years, they hunted deer, elk, and bighorn sheep through the Wallowa Valley and over the surrounding mountains. We didn't come here to hunt live game, but we were certainly going to track down any geocaches along our path. With most of the land beyond the highway sectioned off by barbed wire fencing, the hides we sought tended to be located near the fence posts. While there may have been some options with more challenging terrain, we were more than happy to stick to these easy park and grabs. Having successfully circled all the way around the Wallowa Mountains, we make our final approach from eastern Oregon back into Idaho. This final stretch carries us from Oakesdale along Hells Canyon Scenic Byway, following the course of the Snake River between Oregon and Idaho. This river, running for more than 1,000 miles, is the largest tributary to the Columbia River and the largest North American river that empties into the Pacific Ocean. Winding our way down along the banks of the river, Ichon and I look across from Oregon into Idaho and get ready for a much-needed break before we continue on the long road ahead.
All right, that is going to do it for our 2 days spent coming back down through Washington and Oregon to return to Idaho once again, just across the Snake River here. Yesterday, we began our day in Colfax and really just focused on the southeast portion of Washington. We had 6 pages to cover and wrapped our way around the roads pretty well to be able to make the finds right off of major highways and be able to have amazing views all the way. This morning, we woke up just outside of La Grande and came in through Enterprise and Joseph to come get the page we needed on the very far eastern side of Oregon. That's where things got difficult. To get down near halfway, we were routing directly across the mountains, and we made it pretty darn close, but not close enough. The road was closed down and inaccessible to us. So the 15-ish miles that we still had left to go turned into a 180-mile detour all the way around the mountain range. Oh well, it is what it is. Now that we've made it back to Idaho, we're going to be relaxing for the weekend with a couple of friends we haven't seen in quite a while. Thank you guys for joining us as we made our way back down through Washington and Oregon in our return to Idaho. Like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.